Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So in today's video I'll be sharing with you my winter reading recommendations. So I feel like winter is my favorite season, so it's obvious that I really enjoy reading in winter. And especially for these books, I like to, especially in this season, I like to just lose myself in very, intricate worlds. And if it especially takes place in like a cold climate, I feel like it really enhances reading in winter. I love it when it's dark outside, you can see the snow falling and you're just cozy by the fire. I think like that is total quintessential reading in winter. So these are 5 books that I think are perfect for reading in the winter. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started. So starting out, I first have a thriller that I think is perfect to read during this time of year, and it is Long Bright River by Liz Moore. And this tells the story of 2 sisters. We follow one sister who's a police officer in the Philadelphia PD, and she ends up being involved in an investigation following these string of murders that are taking place. They're ended up being staged as an overdose, but they are actually stranglings. So while this is all going on, she's trying to find her sister, who she hasn't seen in several years, and she and her sister had a falling out due to her heroin addiction. And so while this is also going on, we get flashback of the sisters growing up with a heroin addict mother, and it kind of goes off from there. This one, it also takes place during the winter months, so I think it really gets that like winter atmosphere, but this is very complex. I think I have been very hit or miss with a lot of the book of the month picks, and this one I was holding off for so long, but it ended up being my favorite out of all the ones that I read. So this one is very much well deserving of the praise that it has gotten. And I think what's also unique about this too is that it does raise a lot of questions and talks about a lot of important themes, especially what's going on with the world now, especially systemic racism, police brutality, heroin addiction, like drug addiction. And I think that makes this really unique, and it was a really good, there was a lot of twists and turns in here, and I was like shocked. Like I read this relatively quickly because I'm like, I couldn't put it down, that's how good it was. So I think this is the perfect book to lose yourself in during the winter months. Next up, I have a historical fiction, and it is Lost Roses by Martha Hall Kelly. This is the second book in the Lilac Girls series, or trilogy I guess, but I don't think you necessarily need to read them in order. So you can read Lost Roses first, you can read Lilac Girls first, it doesn't really matter. But this one takes place during World War I, and we follow Eliza, who is in Lilac Girls, Caroline's mother. So we follow her and her friend, who is part of the aristocracy in Russia during World War I, and then we also get Veronika's perspective, who is a peasant in Russia. So we follow these 3 women who lead very different paths during this, the Great War, as it was called. So when the kind of Russian kind of monarchy is collapsing, it's kind of their whole world in Russia is kind of thrown upside down, especially being an aristocrat. So we get kind of the Russian Revolution side of the story, we get the revolutionaries in Russia perspective, and then we also get Eliza's perspective, being in the US and her role that she's played. What I really like about this is that Eliza in particular is a real historical figure, and we get kind of it's a fictionalized story based around this real person, but it deals with a lot of her contribution to the war effort as well, which I really enjoyed. I really love this author. There's something really captivating about her writing, and just the Russian wilderness at that time is just really intense, and there's just like, I don't know, like there's something really captivating about her characters, her writing, the world and stories that she creates around these characters, I think is really unique. So if you're looking for like a historical fiction series, I guess, because the next one is coming out in February or March, and it is following Eliza's mother during the Civil War. So I think like if you like kind of historical fiction, I think you will like this author, or like this series in general. So this is kind of like series based, and it is the Inspector Gamache series by Louise Penny. I have been marathoning through this series for the past few months now, and I am totally in love with this town, these characters. So each book takes place in its own kind of season. I don't remember if this one is like spring or winter, but each one kind of has its own season. So you have summer, fall, winter, and spring. Like, so they have like each one that kind of coincides with the seasons, which is good if you're like a seasonal reader. But what I really love about this is just this quaint town that it takes place in. Although there's like murders taking place in this town, like I really just want to live there. It kind of reminds me of Stars Hollow. But yeah, it just follows Inspector Gamache, who is the kind of head homicide detective in kind of Montreal area, and so he always ends up getting involved with the investigation of murders that take place in this quaint Quebec town called Free Pines, and it kind of goes off from there. But I love the sense of found family and just the camaraderie with the people in this town. Like, it's just so cute, and I really love, especially this takes place in Canada, so it has a lot of Canadian culture references, or some of them integrate a lot of Canadian history in here. And as a Canadian, I really like that it reminds me of home. So I definitely love this series. I do plan on going into 2021 kind of marathoning and just getting caught up with this series. So I definitely, like I said, I really love this series. So next up, I think this one is a good mix of kind of mystery and historical fiction-esque, and it is The Lake House by Kate Morton. I haven't talked about this book in a really long time. I think I read it, I know I read it during my master's, so it was at least like between 2016 and 2018, so it's been a while since I've talked about this. So it follows this family who's very kind of rich and affluent in the 1930s, and on the evening that they throw this huge party at the end of summer, their baby boy is stolen out of the crib, and they never found out about it again. And so one of the daughters that was there, who lost her brother, it becomes a very famous mystery novelist. And so when she is working on her next book, I want to say like 60 years later, she ends up getting approached by this journalist who is working on the unsolved mystery of what happened to this writer's brother many years ago, because the baby was never found. And so we kind of get flashbacks to the events leading up to the baby snatching, and that coincides with the investigation and kind of figuring out, like, putting the clues together of this mystery. And I love Kate Morton. I've read all of her books, and I think they're all very well done, and I love her like flawless ability to switch between the past and present storylines, but it doesn't, like, it's so fluid, and you can just like go through it so quickly, and it's like seamlessly, and it makes the story progress in such a unique way. So I really like this. I think this one is also unique as well. It's a perfect book to kind of lose yourself in, and just basically any Kate Morton book I think would be perfect for this one, but I haven't talked about this one in a while, and so I think you guys would really like this one as well. And lastly, I have The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, and this is her newest release. She has a new one coming out in February, which I'm really excited about, but I think this one is like perfect to read during the winter months, and it follows this family who are living in the 1970s, and the father ended up fighting in Vietnam, and he ended up suffering with PTSD. They didn't really call it that at that time, but he thinks like they can solve all of the family problems if they pack up their life and move to Alaska. But that ends up being very detrimental to the family unit, and so we follow the daughter that's kind of going through this and her experience moving to Alaska, dealing with the days that are basically all light all the time, or all like dark outside through all hours of the day, and being trapped in the wilderness and then this cabin. And I think you just need to go in and experience it as it is. Like, it's very well written. I think you just need to experience this and just lose yourself in the Alaskan wilderness. Like, Alaska in here and how she describes it is so picturesque, and like I can totally picture the kind of town that they live in. And Alaska itself is almost like a character, plays a role of a character in here as well, like the Alaskan wilderness, which I think is really fun. So yeah, just trigger warnings for domestic violence in here, so if you are kind of sensitive towards that, this may not be good for you. But this book is very haunting, and I think it's like perfect to read when it's like winter, like during a winter blizzard. I think will be perfect to read this. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your winter reading recommendations are and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.